This is being reborn as Sasuke in Konoha Part 7. Hope you guys like it. Chapter 31, V.1C.31 Tune-in Exam I. Sasuke looked at the village after being out for nearly 3 weeks, plus 2 months after that since, seeing that many things has progressed nicely. The village was looking better than the time he had left, with a few buildings being refurbished and rebuilt or renovated due to Konohagakyo's economic situation improving. After those 3 weeks however, Team 11 had spent another 2 months either staying in Konoha or going out for some very short-term, actual C-rank missions of a whole variety. Most missions being close by to the village, or being directly connected and related to the village itself. Sasuke's body had adjusted by now to the Kyuubi's chakra, whereupon his now Uzumaki genetics and special chakra taken from Kushina allows him to be an even better Jinchuriki for the tailed beasts. His chakra had also exploded as time passed ever since the integration, further making it harder and harder for Sasuke to practice his chakra control. It doesn't help being the Jinchuriki for the full Kyuubi, having Uzumaki chakra growth and combining that with the innate talent granted upon to me from being Indra's reincarnation. All factors included, Sasuke's returns on practice and training is huge. It was like an investment, where he put in a large amount of money and the interest rate is also simultaneously high enough to generate even more money, only further compounding as time passes. Sasuke currently had chakra levels comparable to the Hokage, and he had checked. Double-checked. Triple-checked to make sure of his progress being that much. A small dog jumped onto Sasuke's bed, waking him up. Okay. Stop it, Shio. Sasuke had grown fond of his pet Ninken. Shio stopped, and started whining a bit. Sighing, Sasuke speaks. Yes. Of course I will take you with me now. Sasuke usually only kept Shio in Konoha, not wanting to take Shio anywhere in fear for losing her. Well. What did you expect, Sasuke? You killed your Kuro for power, and people would kill Shio for way less. Sasuke had developed this sort of fear, not wanting to lose anything else precious to him. Not Shio, not Mikoto, not Izumi, not Hinata, Sakura, Ino, and the many more people he had grown close to. Everything dies. Decay, destruction, death. Everything in the end succumbs to change, as a result of everything interacting with everything. But Sasuke was once again awoken from his internal thoughts by Shio licking his face. Stop that. He was not angry or anything, but did dislike having the dog's saliva all over him. You are supposed to be above your average dog, and look at you. Sasuke shook his head left to right. Fine. You may follow me around then. Shio was small still, just like all Ninken that come from the Inuzuka, and Sasuke had received his at the exact right time that Kiba received his own. Akamaru and Shio are both still around 4 years of age, having longer lifespans due to chakra mutations evolving these dogs in particular. Now that I think about it. The tune-in exam should be starting up soon. Sasuke thought as he conjured from nothing an ice flake. It is also good to continue to expand my abilities. Sasuke vanished the ice flake a second after. At various points around Konoha, Sasuke had made clones to go and mark certain key areas for the Hiraishin, making it easier for him to get around. Of course there is one within his room, the Nakar Shrine, and other areas of importance. However, I will keep anything like my marks away from the Hokage's office. Who knows if anyone would be able to see the marks I left? Sasuke thought to himself as he was standing atop the Hokage monument. Their heads carved into the mountain overlooking the entirety of the village. Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, Hiruzen Sarutabi and Minato Namikaze. Looking down to the village, Sasuke's Sharingan was at this point becoming a permanent fixture upon his face. I was skeptical at first, but it was true. The idea that I could use my Sharingan to even go so deep as to see my cells. See any cell, to be honest. Sasuke remembered from his previous life that the original Sasuke had the ability to see at the cellular level. Which is ridiculous, but was a possibility, and Sasuke had used this to his advantage when creating the Chimera seal. Again. If I was not reborn as Sasuke, I would probably have to use some other method. No advanced technologies around medicine were present. Zooming in, Sasuke saw the 2 sand ninjas, Temurai and Kankuro. The 2 of them were just walking normally, with no real destination in sight. So I was right then. Sasuke knew it was happening soon, but he thought it may have been a little while longer. That doesn't matter. I believe Gaara should have some bloodline limit for me to access. Then again, there are a lot of bloodline users going to be present during the exam. This version of Gaara might not even have access to magnet release, as that was only within the novelization. His ability to manipulate sand is the result of being the Jinchuriki for that raccoon. Sasuke could do something similar to what he had done to Naruto, but it was very likely that Gaara would die. Which is the worst option I could choose? Sasuke wanted to use Gaara to his advantage, as by now the Akatsuki must know that he is the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. They must have also found out by now that Naruto is also no longer a Jinchuriki as well. Sasuke was not loath to admit that he was willing to use the lives of others for his own benefit. Pausing for but a split second, Sasuke recovers a second later as he had just received the memories of multiple clones that dispersed at once. He had slowly gotten used to the use of shadow clones, as they were really broken in terms of training. He didn't have to do anything at all except make them, and unlike with Naruto, where his clones acted like they all had their own personalities, Sasuke's clones were quiet. I was worried at first that they would act strangely, but I guess that is only in relation to Naruto. The shadow clones had nearly completed their training, but were interrupted by approaching people, which lead to them deciding to dispel themselves to keep Sasuke's methods a secret. Sasuke, on top of the Hokage monument, once was there, then disappeared the next second. Within a training grounds, Sakura, Hinata and even Ino had met up with each other, proceeding to practice and train with each other. Sasuke would join in sometimes as well, and it was through him that the three of them would even come together to train. Hinata, Sakura and Ino all in general practiced against each other's taijutsu techniques, leaving the more chakra-based techniques out. The specializations between the three didn't include too many ninjutsu, where Sakura would be mainly focused on medical ninjutsu and taijutsu, Ino would be focused on genjutsu and Hinata would be focused on purely taijutsu. Their skill sets, Hinata's bloodline limit, Sakura's chakra control and Ino's secret clan techniques all contributed to their overall paths. Slightly influenced by Sasuke of course to hasten the three into achieving the limits of their abilities, and then some. Currently it was Hinata against both Sakura and Ino. All recently graduated genin teams were not doing any missions on this particular day, and the three girls had noticed this fact, taking advantage of this and facing off against each other. Hinata had her Bakugan active as she was able to anticipate and perceive everything around herself. Of course, except that small bit at the back where the Bakugan fails. Hinata. I must admit that you are the best among us in taijutsu. Ino said as she kept herself distanced carefully, as in this duel, Ino and Sakura could only use taijutsu against the white-eyed girl. Ino. Let's finally beat her. Sakura called as she went in, her own physical strength actually being the greatest out of the three of them. Hinata could only win purely based on her knowing and practicing the gentle fist, allowing her to circumvent needing massive amounts of physical power. Hinata didn't reply but she noticed that Ino was coming from behind, and proceeded to actually land a hit on Ino before she dodged. Sakura on the other hand punched out, trying to land her own blow but Hinata disabled Sakura's arm in the process, leaving both Sakura and Ino now a bit more crippled. This is so unfair. You got your bloodline limit. I don't understand this exercise. Sakura exclaimed, before Hinata replied. Sasuke also said that it is unfair, but that is only natural. Hinata said. Sighing, Ino and Sakura give up there, knowing that Hinata's level of defense was above and beyond their own. Hinata moved up to the two and proceeded to undo the blocking, which leads to Hinata having another idea of her own. What about I don't use the Bakugan? After all, Sasuke doesn't always use the Sharingan. Hinata said. He always has it active nowadays though. Ino replied. That is true, but when he fights against us, he never uses it. So, I want to give it a try and see if I can adapt to the situation. Hinata would still have her eyes, but she would not be using her reputed clan's dojutsu. Okay. That might make things too unfair though. So one at a time. Sakura said, the companionship amongst these three being very high. In fact, these three girls consider each other the best of friends. Before they could start another person came into the training grounds. Hello. I see that this place is taken. A girl with black hair and grey eyes makes herself known. She wears her hair in two Chinese-style buns on her head with short fringe bangs framing her face. Miss Tenton. Hinata questioned, identifying the older girl as she walked into the area. You know of me? Tenten was surprised. Oh. You are that weapons freak that Sasuke had told us about. Sakura said as she looked Tenten up and down, nodding her head as if she confirmed something. Ha. Who is this Sasuke? You mean that Sasuke Uchiha knows about me? Even more so now was Tenten confused to be known by Sasuke, especially since said person isn't even in the area. Here right now. Oh. Sorry about that. Sasuke has made it a habit to know any and everyone that is a ninja, no matter how low down on the ladder of ranks they are. Ino supplied, filling in why they all know of her, for they also had to go through the same process of memorizing people. And none of us have the Sharingan to make it easy to remember things. Ino sighed, while thinking about how while she loves Sasuke, that doesn't mean she likes his training regimen. It was more than just physical. Something about how the yin and yang must get stronger and stronger. Is that right? Tenten got over her confusion and asked. Are you guys using this training grounds? I usually come here to practice using my weapons. We are. Sakura nodded her head, before continuing. How about you join us for a bit? We don't mind sharing. When Sakura said this, Ino thought inwardly. Yes you do. You don't want to share Sasuke. She shook her head of those thoughts before returning to the conversation. The three, now four girls would practice and train with each other. After all, it was better to diversify your practice partners as much as you could to gain more experience against various fighting styles. You guys are pretty good for some recent graduates. Tenten praised the three, as she was sweating, and compared the workout to the way her own teammate and teacher train when it comes to physical endurance. After they were done, Hinata couldn't help ask. Is Neji doing alright? She treated Neji like an older brother, and with the subsequent not death of Neji's father, Hinata's uncle, Neji was not the same as he would have been. He is fine, Lady Hinata. Tenten replied in a respectful tone, a bit influenced by how Neji refers to Hinata. I do admit though that he is a bit cocky. Tenten nodded her head, as while Neji wasn't like the original, his mindset was still very similar. Especially since Neji's father hadn't died, given he was the one to pass on such thinking towards his son. Then it is all right then. Hinata nodded her head, smiling a bit but had a frown on her face just after, thinking about the cursed seal. Now that I think about, Sasuke and teacher Kushina both have experience in seals, maybe. You okay there Hinata? Ino shook Hinata awake from her thoughts. Yeah. I am okay. Hinata nodded her head. Why don't we all go for something to eat? Tenten suggested. I'll pay. You don't need to, but thank you. Sakura replied, leading the four of them to head out of the training grounds and find somewhere to dine. Comment. 12 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 32, V.1C.32 Tune-in Exam 2. Somewhere else, Naruto had managed to get himself into the same exact situation as he had in the original, where Konohamaru was now being held and threatened by the sand ninja known as Kankuro. Sasuke didn't get involved but he did watch with interest, as Gaara made his appearance with some small changes here and there, given Sasuke wasn't there to do anything. Watching with interest, Sasuke gets a better and more accurate description of all three sand ninja, Gaara, Kankuro and Tamarai. Gaara has fair skin, green eyes, and short auburn hair where for most of his life his hair is spiky. He lacks distinctive pupils or eyebrows, the latter of which others sometimes make fun of. He's had tanuki-like black rings around his eyes his whole life, which Gamabunta attributes to insomnia. As a child, he carved the kanji for love on the left side of his forehead, which his hair is parted in order for it to be kept visible. Kankuro wore a Bunraku puppeteer's costume, a black, baggy, full body suit with a red and yellow circle on the front. He also wears a black hood which covered his head completely, and had cat-like ears and his forehead protector on his forehead. His outfits are derived from traditional Bunraku puppeteer costumes. Bunraku puppeteers usually wear black outfits and hoods so as not to distract from their puppets. Kankuro sported a triangular face paint design. He also wears gloves and carries his puppets on his back. Then finally, Sasuke laid his eyes on the only female, older in age than himself. Tamarai has teal eyes and sandy blonde hair, which is gathered into 4 consecutive pigtails. Tomri's outfit consists of a single light purple cultured, off-the-shoulders garment that extended to halfway down her thighs, with a scarlet sash tied around her waist. In addition to incorporating fishnet worn over her shoulders and legs, specifically on her right calf and her left thigh, she also wore her black forehead protector around her neck. After the little confrontation, Sasuke watched as these three individuals went away from the area. Well, it seems like their capabilities is around the level I thought it would be. Sasuke had been getting pings through his chakra sensing and negative emotions sensing. Gaara, Kankuro and Tomri all had levels of power, or levels of chakra he expected them to be around. Gaara in particular, he could sense negative emotions due to the faulty seal used on the one-tails. Sasuke also happened to sense those pesky sound ninja under the control of Orochimaru. I do wonder if Orochimaru is still interested in me or not. Also, considering his connection to the Akatsuki, he should have knowledge that I am in fact one of the Kyuubi Jinchurikis. Sasuke looked towards the three people hiding within a tree, supposedly out of sight from everyone else that happened to be involved with Naruto's little troublesome ways. Sasuke teleported away, knowing that it was finally time to meet up with the rest of his current team, alongside Kushina. Let's see if she recommended us. I see everyone seems to be looking good, Kushina said as she appeared before her genin students. Hinata, Sakura and Sasuke all said their own greetings as well. All of you are here early, as always. Kushina nodded her head as she said this, sizing up her genin students. I know this may be sudden, but I recommended you guys for the Chunin exam, so. Kushina glanced between the three of them, before pulling out 3 pieces of paper. Here are your applications. The recommendations are not compulsory, so the choice of whether or not you attend is all up to the 3 of you. All 3 of you are free to decide whether or not you take the exam. Only those that want to take that exam. Sign that application and come to room 301 of the academy at 3 p.m. 5 days from now. Kushina finished before leaving herself to do something, whatever it is. Sasuke, Hinata and Sakura all now have their own slips, whereupon they may decide to take the exam or not. Doing this would promote us to Chunin, maybe. Sakura had a pondering look on her face. However, from what I understand, we would no longer be a unit or full team due to this. Hinata nodded her head in understanding, looking at the slip she now held within her hands. I am getting stronger. Through this I will be a step closer to becoming more than I was before. Before Sasuke had helped Hinata become stronger, she was still looked down enough within her clan so that she would be pushed aside for her younger sister becoming the new heir. Not that Hanabi was in the wrong and Hinata didn't love her as she should, but the rules of her clan were harsh. I will become stronger, Hinata declared within her mind as she saw Sasuke's contemplative face looking at his own application. And then, I will ask Sasuke to help me. Only after I have become a Chunin. Hinata had set herself a goal, whereupon she may ask Sasuke with the whole Hyuga Curse clan business. I will prove to Neji that he is wrong. Sakura on the other hand contemplated herself what she would do after Team 11 would kind of be done for. Not that we wouldn't be able to still be a team, but it hasn't even been that long since we have started and I have been growing closer to Sasuke. Sakura had tried to comfort Sasuke after the Uchiha incident. Of course, not knowing anything, she was wrong to assume she could comfort him. He didn't even look like he even needed it. Sakura thought derisively to herself, again reminding herself and reaffirming why she even became a ninja. At first, it may have been to be together with Sasuke, but he has proven to her through actions and words that she should probably not do things for others, and instead do things for herself. By nature, wanting to be with Sasuke is selfish, right? But that was not what Sasuke meant. To her, she wanted nothing more than this even when pushed, her mind still stuck in her childhood desires. I have had no other great calling, or been inspired to do something in particular. My dream. Sasuke on the other hand looked at his hands, then to the piece of paper that he would need to sign in order to begin his path upwards in the chain of command. Not needed, but. Sasuke had many thoughts floating through his mind. The most prominent has to do with the whole Jinchuriki status of Gaara, and his potential bloodline limit of magnet release. Those are the 2 main reasons for me to do this, other than getting involved and stopping the 3rd Hokage from dying. While Sasuke had no special connection to the 3rd Hokage in particular, he had mixed feelings in regards to this person. It is true that Hiruzen never knew of the Uchiha massacre, not until Itakai had reported about it. Then there is Orochimaru. I may not be his match, however with Kotomatsu Kami I should be able to control him. Wait. That is a great idea. Then Sasuke would have control over this person that has access to a whole host of information, and other things that could benefit him. Sasuke took things one step at a time, usually not planning things too far ahead unless they are of great importance to himself. Okay. I will leave. You guys make the decision on your own, as I don't want to influence anyone's decision. It should be made through your own choices. Sasuke said before leaving. Hinata and Sakura looked at each other and nodded before they too would head their separate ways. The next day, Sasuke was waiting outside the academy where room 301 is located. The place is packed to the brim with many people getting in the way, and being like sardines. The genin all tried to move their way to access the supposed spot where everyone needed to go. So, are you sure you're going to attempt taking the Chunin exam with that skill? Some random mob characters were blocking the door with a presumptuous attitude, as a kid with a green outfit on was knocked to the ground. Tenten tried to make her way through, but instead was punched down by those in the way. After going through a spiel of nonsense, Sasuke has had enough. Surprisingly enough, neither Hinata or Sakura has decided to do anything about it. I thought they would at least stand up for Tenten being hit. Sasuke's eyes were of the Sharingan and he moved forward. Knowing that the room was not the actual place everyone needed to be, Sasuke started to move away from the area, not bothering to stand up for Tenten being hit as well. Why would I? I am no knight in shining armor. Also, I only know of her through my information gathering and previous life. That's it. No other personal relationship whatso. Sasuke was interrupted due to Sakura moving over towards Tenten and helping her with a medical ninjutsu. Are you all right, Tenten? Hinata moved in as well, asking this question. Well, when did these two meet her then? Sasuke sighed, knowing that his presence would soon be known. Moving forward, Sasuke's Sharingan eyes scared those around him, for while they are both beautiful, they are also considered a dangerous thing. There is a barrier created with genjutsu. Sasuke said, shocking everyone. This is the second floor. How could no one here recognize this? Of course, Sakura and Hinata had, but that is besides the point. How cocky of you. One of the mob characters said, going in for the strike, and Sasuke also caught from his peripheral vision that the green-wearing person got up and was heading in for the intercept. He is definitely fast. I will give him that. Sasuke nodded his head as Rock Lee, the bowl-cut, Taijutsu beast, stopped the attacking individual from striking against Sasuke. Come on then, Sakura, Hinata. Sakura had already healed Tenten, as both Sakura and Hinata both said their goodbyes to their friend and moved on. Wait. Lee called out to Sasuke's group, intending to introduce to Sakura, but instead he was ignored. Sasuke also saw the two hidden guys that were in front had gone somewhere else. Annoying proctors trying to test our capabilities. Sasuke already knew, and that is why he never attacked from the start and didn't even want to list out the illusion. Whatever, this test will just have some more people passing than before. Not only were Team 11 here, but so too were Team 7, 8, and all others as well, passing this test and moving on to the third floor. Tenten that had been stricken looked at the famous Sasuke Uchiha and had her own thoughts on him. That is the brat that called me a weapons freak. Why does he have to look good? Tenten sighed inwardly, her slight anger at Sasuke spreading rumors having dissipated at seeing his face. Especially those eyes, the Sharingan. Truly, being handsome or beautiful can be considered an advantage. Then there was Neji Hyuga, Hinata's cousin and the person she would consider as her own older brother. Neji had fair skin and long black hair. When his Bakugan was not active he has featureless white eyes. He wore a beige cultured shirt, a dull blue shirt beneath that, and mesh armor beneath that. He wore dark brown shorts, blue Shiner Bee sandals, and wrapped bandages around his right arm, chest, and right leg. He tied his hair back in a loose ponytail tied a few inches above the end. He wore a black forehead protector, under which was a smaller headband with two straps that frame the sides of his face, both of which hide his Hyuga main family's Juinjutsu. It would seem that Hinata has some strong teammates. Especially that Sasuke. Neji already knows of Sasuke via him visiting the Hyuga residence while he was younger and being friends with Hinata. I shall test my destiny against his. Then, of course there happened to be Rock Lee. Lee has shiny black hair, round eyes with prominent lower eyelashes, and very thick eyebrows. Lee wore a white, short-sleeved kimono shirt with a martial arts belt and dark pants, giving him a more traditional Chinese appearance. He also sported a forehead protector and shiner sandals. My love has left me. Lee's eyes started to burn with fervor, as he glanced at what he assumed to be his opponent and rival in love. I shall let my youthful power outshine his. Sasuke on the other hand just felt a lot of stairs hitting his back. The only thought he could conjure was, troublesome. Comment. 6 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 33, V.1C.33 Tune in Exam 3. Why don't you fight with me, here now? Lee followed after, wanting to brawl against Sasuke in some display of strength. Hinata and Sakura were surprised, even knowing who this person is because of having to memorize other ninja. You can't be serious. Sakura deadpanned. Okay. Show me some technique. Sasuke said, not actually going to fight but instead observe the way Lee fights, taking in his taijutsu style. I haven't seen everything after all. Maybe I should be doing that, utilizing the shadow clone technique to gather information on everyone within the village. Shadow clones in combination with the Sharingan would definitely make information easy to gather. Sasuke's go-ahead was all Lee needed to start, but from Sasuke's point of view the world was so slow, even if he didn't have his Sharingan activated. His mind and body had gone through and been under the influence of the Sharingan's slowed perception of time that it started to adapt as such. Even without this adaptation, his mind and eyes would be able to keep up with Lee's moves, dodging the kicks that had quite a lot of power in them. Lee is definitely strong. Sasuke didn't do anything but dodge the blows, faster than what he could currently pull off. Lee's thoughts were of shock. What? The genius of the Uchiha is overcoming my efforts so easily. Lee was definitely a little disheartened by this factor, given Sasuke hadn't even returned a blow at all. Stopping, Lee goes backwards. It would seem that you are a worthy opponent, such that my taijutsu is easily seen through. Lee saw that Sasuke's eyes were of the Sharingan. Those eyes. I think that is enough. Sasuke stated, his eyes flickering towards where a turtle showed up out of nowhere. Teacher. Lee quickly went towards the turtle, exclaiming that it was his teacher. The turtle went up in smoke, revealing someone that actually looked very similar to the current Rock Lee. Teacher Might Guy. Sasuke greeted the older man, where Sakura and Hinata were a bit off-put by his overall demeanor. Both Lee and Guy had this aura about them that seemed to just repel any potential charisma they could have. Well, I can say they at least have their own form of charm. Sasuke thought to himself, gaining some understanding as to how powerful Guy's physique was. Guy is a tall and well-muscled man. He has fair skin, a strong jawline, a somewhat large nose, and black hair. He is most noticeable for his shiny bowl-style haircut and thick eyebrows. He wears a green jumpsuit, orange striped leg warmers, and the standard Konoha flak jacket, which he normally leaves unzipped. His red forehead protector is worn around his waist like a belt. Lee. Hurry and rejoin your teammates for the coming exam. Guy looked at Sasuke suspiciously, noticing just how easily Sasuke seemed to dodge Lee. Lee is not his opponent. I need to go now. Guy was gone just as fast as he had arrived, while Lee seemed to get some of his spirit back and run towards the actual area one needed to arrive out for the tune-in exam. That was interesting. Sakura stated. Hinata nodded her head, perplexed about the actions and overall way those two acted. Are those two related? No. They aren't, but they might as well should be. Sasuke replied, before continuing. Let's go now. Coming up to the 3rd floor, Team 11 was able to witness Team 7 talking to Kakashi, whom explained things about supposedly not telling Team 7 about some core details to the exam. It would seem that Kakashi and Team 7 is still the same. Sasuke's Sharingan eyes captured every detail in his sight. An interesting fact to take note of is how the eyes and ears function in the same area of the brain, and by going off of this logic, Sasuke and other Sharingan users should also have an enhanced sense of hearing as well. Sasuke as of this point, from gaining the Inuzuka's sensitivity to smell, and the Sharingan, he was ticking off and enhancing his perception-based abilities. I can tell that my hearing is also greater when the Sharingan is active. Oh. Would you look at that? Arriving fashionably late, are we? Kakashi did an eye smile as he spotted Team 11 coming down the hallway, where his own team, Team 7 had just entered. Lady Kushina was correct. You guys would easily pass this small test. Kakashi said. So she also didn't tell us this for the same reasons? Hinata asked the one-eyed ninja. Yes. After all, teamwork is still important. It is very likely you all shall continue to stay in teams for missions in the future. It is also very likely you would be paired up with members of your genin team. Kakashi answered, explaining some more details. So, we can go in then? Sakura asked. Kakashi nodded. Sure. Go ahead. I will be sure to tell Lady Kushina of your success. I was sent here in place of her due to some reasons. Okay. Thank you. Hinata replied, heading in first, followed after by Sakura and Sasuke. Itachi's little brother, huh? Kakashi thought to himself, watching Sasuke go in as his eyes were showing the fierceness and beauty of the Sharingan. He is a bit of a genius himself. With those eyes, he probably should have graduated earlier than just this year. Kakashi thought, now seeing Sasuke's back. Sasuke's clothing just a natural black color, overall he was wearing a long-sleeved shirt, long pants, some proper shoes that covered his toes and a hairstyle that seemed a bit too long for a ninja. I can see the resemblance. Upon entering, just like Team 7, Team 11 were shocked by just how many people there were within. I mean, I knew there was going to be a lot, but this place is packed like sardines. Sasuke thought, glancing through every person in the room. People of all ages. Well, nearly of all ages, given that there seemed to be people even in their later teenage years. There may have even been people older than that and are currently in their 20s, which only sent to show just how vast the level of ninja there are. Complete civilians stood no chance when trying to become a ninja, given it takes a long time to train. They would have no techniques passed down, and their level of genius would have to either be great enough to push them above the crowd, or Sasuke's eyes saw Lee. Or their determination, effort, training and a small amount of luck would be needed to push themselves above those geniuses, talents, or those benefiting from their clans or families' background into becoming stronger. It is almost reminiscent of Chinese cultivation novels. Sasuke thought to himself, amused. The strong get stronger, and the weak get weaker. I would say this applies, but the weak are able to get strong as well. Sasuke, you're late. Of course, Sasuke's thoughts are interrupted by the bubbly Ino, whom seemed overjoyed to see him. She proceeded to hug him from his behind, as her body touched his own. It has only been a day. Sasuke replied, and Ino pouted as he said this, while Sakura seemed less upset than what she would have been like by this display. The bastard. Naruto whispered to himself, watching Sasuke enjoy the attention of his crush. Are you guys going to take this bothersome exam, too? Shikamaru asked, as Ino had come with her team after all. Naruto would proceed to make some rather silly comments, with calling Team 10 as the idiot trio. Then there happened to be more people coming. Team 7, 8, 10 and 11 had now gathered around, with everyone gathering together in this environment that seems to be not so friendly. After all, there are multiple individuals within this area that seem older and more powerful than the opponents many genin would usually face. Barking, from within Sasuke's clothing, Shio appears and seems to communicate with Kiba's Ninken. Oh. Sasuke. You brought Shio along. Kiba said this, having grown some friendship with the person who had blackmailed him. Yes. Sasuke replied. Huh. How come I didn't notice that? Sakura exclaimed as she saw the two puppies communicate with each other. But don't get too excited just yet, Sasuke. How far can we go? All of us, the genin 12. Of course, Kiba saw himself as Sasuke's rival, just as Naruto did as well. Naruto would get all hoppity and talk with Kiba, and everyone else started to show their own traits. Character and personality-wise, in that everyone here had some kind of thing to make them different from the rest. Even the two extra and alive Uchiha members here had their own stories as well. The boy, Akio in particular, seemed to have some grudge held against Sasuke, probably for being Itachi's brother, while the girl, Miko, didn't seem particularly interested in Sasuke or anyone for that matter at all. Soon enough, after the Rookie 12's reunion was over, another player entered the field. I'm Kabuto Yakushi. Anyway, take a good look around you. Which everyone promptly did. Kabuto promptly explained a great deal of boring things that Sasuke already knew everything about and most importantly had no care listening to. His eyes instead closed, relaxed and awaiting for the scripted scene to be over and done with. Kabuto has onyx eyes and ash grey hair, which he normally keeps in a ponytail. His most consistent feature are his black-rimmed circular glasses. Kabuto wears a dark purple shirt with a high collar, a white undershirt, and dark purple pants with a white cloth waistband. In part he wears also dark purple fingerless gloves with armored plates on the back of the hand and a blue forehead protector. After all, Kabuto is not just your average genin. He is a spy. Kabuto spent most of his life as a spy working for many different individuals, organizations, and countries. His natural talents in intelligence gathering and medicine attracted the attention of Orochimaru when he was younger, who made Kabuto his right-hand man. When Kabuto was showcasing the cards that supposedly holds information on everyone, Sasuke had to get a grasp of what others would in general know about himself. He didn't care for the information about anyone else in particular, having recorded everything into his mind already. Everyone soon enough got distracted by Kabuto's showing of information via these cards in his possession. After this distraction, Naruto went ahead and exclaimed to everyone in the room that he would not be defeated by them, or something like that. Sighing, Sasuke couldn't help but admit that Naruto still has the protagonist spirit, at least. For Naruto's growth was not as fast as it should have been. Sure, Naruto had lots of chakra, but that amount was probably not as much as it should have been. The removal of the Kyuubi from the boy was both a blessing and a curse, in that Naruto now has less chakra to use, but has started to catch up on his chakra control. Within the room, Sasuke could most certainly sense the negative emotions of various individuals being directed at others, being directed at himself and at all of the other Rookie 12 that had made their way to the back of the room. There are more Konoha ninja overall, probably even more so than before. Sasuke's manipulation years ago had borne fruit, in that Konoha had more applicants than before in this matchup. While everyone is distracted, the individuals from the Sound Village attacked Kabuto, allowing Sasuke to take in fully what types of techniques they had utilized. Thank you for your kind donation. Another reason to participate in this event is the vast amount of techniques that Sasuke can pick up through the Sharingan. Kabuto collapsed to the ground as he was attacked by the technique that didn't even hit him. Oh, so he's not so special. Even though he's a veteran that has been taking the exam for 4 whole years. The individual masked by bandages that go around his head, even an eye, said. His teammate continued for him. Write this on your card. The 3 from Sound Village. Doubtless tune in. Everyone practically started to analyze what had just happened, right from those that had no understanding to even those that saw through it as some kind of trick. Right from back to front, everyone is shocked at this strange display of skill. At the front of the room, that was a classroom, a cloud of smoke appeared. Silence. Degenerates. How did he know? One person thought to themselves, surprised at the surprise appearance. Sorry to keep you waiting. The person from the smoke was revealed, alongside many other people that are proctors for the Chunin exam. I'm Ibuki Morino, proctor for the first test of the Chunin exam. Comment. 7 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 34, V.1C.34 Chunin Exam 4. The now new and current proctor who showed himself scolded the sound ninja, before threatening those within this place to dare to try anything funny. If they did so, the proctor would immediately disqualify those that dared to go against the rules or screws with the proctor, Ibuki Morino. Ibuki has a large, imposing figure, which he complements with a rugged head and face covered with old wounds and scars. Ibuki's head is always covered by his forehead protector to conceal a collection of burn marks, punctures from where screws were used, and long slash marks. The scars are indicative of the physical torture he has endured in the past, and illustrates his capacity to endure pain without giving up the desired information to the enemy. He wears a darker version of the standard uniform of the Intelligence Division, along with a black trench coat and gloves. Now then, we will start the first test of the Chunin exam. Ibuki said. Turn in your applications, take one of these number cards in exchange, and sit in the seat matching that number. After that, we will hand out the paper for the written test. Given the amount of people, those being tested would have to be split between 2 classrooms instead of 1, so that there may be enough room for everyone to be seated properly. However, instead of being split into another classroom, it would seem that Ibuki forcibly had everything set up in a manner that would allow everyone to be seated within. Everyone was scattered, so as to make sure they are possibly not seated next to people that know each other and could possibly cheat. The rules were then stated by Ibuki, which did get on the nerves of everyone within, further allowing Ibuki to put to the test the mettle of the prospective shinobi. Everyone within the room were having problems with trying to understand what the questions were provided on the test. Their current level of education not being able to come up with the solutions for the problems, or not having the required intellect to overcome this obstacle. Very few within would be able to solve these problems, with Sakura and Sasuke being the only ones from Konoha to really be able to decipher such questions. Sasuke of course could have just explained everything that the tests would be about to his teammates, but where would be the fun and character development in that? No. Again, I am probably not going to always be by the sides of those close to myself. Sasuke had deactivated his Sharingan for this part, not needing to use it in this currently boring manner. I think I will not answer then. It would be better to split my focus between here and within my mind. Sasuke did just that, keeping his senses extended outside of himself for once the test is over, and going into himself to work on some mental defenses. After all, it was entirely possible for someone like Ino to still use her clan's techniques against him. Or anyone else for that matter, like Orochimaru. Or even more likely is that the Sage of the Six Paths could be spying on myself and Naruto if he so chooses or desires. Sasuke's biggest worry when it came to protecting his mind was to make sure no other may access his knowledge. Knowledge of the future. Already yet, Sasuke's actions had influenced the direction of the plot, but again, his actions have also still set the original plot to follow a similar path. If a prophecy could be made about someone bringing peace, and Sasuke knows of the existence of people that have some capacity to see the future themselves, then he knows better than to allow himself to be seen through. Especially by such a big figure like Hagoromo Otsutsuki, as this old foggy has been watching everything from the start. Yes. It is best I do not allow anyone access to my innermost thoughts and memories. Shio came out from Sasuke's clothing to check on what is going on. But seeing the intense atmosphere in contradiction to Sasuke's own mood, Shio went back inside, somehow just disappearing out of nowhere. The method Shio used to appear in and out was some small modification that Sasuke had made to the 8-trigram seal so Shio can go in and out. Of course, Sasuke had made sure that she doesn't come across the Kyuubi, and had a place set up entirely for it. I did promise to not leave her, so this is how I fulfill it. Sasuke opened his eyes. How boring. Writing down the answers is not the test, and even the information gathering part won't be the deciding factor in whether or not people pass either. Sasuke shook his head before picking up the pencil and writing down all of the correct answers on the paper within a span of 5 minutes. Not only the correct answers, but even simplified ways to work out the problems presented by the questions on the test. Extending his sense once again, Sasuke was able to perceive the movements of everyone within. This is a good way to get in some practice for my sensing technique. Sasuke wanted to make sure his ability to sense through his technique is able to emulate the Bakugan, but most importantly able to sense even minute movements. Every muscle contractions, shifting of bones, twitch of the hand, flow of breath, blinking of someone's eyes or shuffling of feet. Everything. While Sasuke was doing this, Sakura had completed her test as well, of course having to take a longer time than Sasuke. However, her intelligence is something she was born with, so it made sense. Hinata is smart herself, but not to the same degree. Even still, Hinata had completed the test without much trouble. I hope I didn't do too badly. I believe and think that I have gotten most if not all correct. I shall double check it now. Hinata thought to herself, as she was seated next to Tamrai from the hidden sand village. Soon enough people started to be dragged out for failure, thus taking themselves and their teams with them. It was Ino's turn next, and she had just the person she could rely on. Okay Sakura. Your intelligence is something I wish to borrow, so don't mind me. Ino proceeded to access Sakura via the mind transfer technique, taking control of Sakura's body unknowingly. Thanks Sakura. Now to remember these answers and pass it on to the lazy bum Shikamaru and Choji. While Shikamaru is smart and all, his intelligence didn't lend well to Shikamaru's lazy nature. So Ino had to do all the work here, for it would probably take some time for even Shikamaru to try and figure it out. Number after number was being called out, as team after team was being eliminated, and the pressure was starting to make the process harder and harder for people to handle. All Sasuke had to do now was sit back, of course making sure to make it hard for anyone who may want to try and get some answers off of his paper. Let's put a little visual illusion on this thing. Sasuke drew a small seal on the edge of the test paper given, and controlled his chakra to activate for only a short period of time. Usually one would want some special paper and ink to create a proper seal, but Sasuke only did this for a short period of time. The paper would risk burning up immediately if I was not an expert at chakra control and seals. If someone else attempted to do this using such basic material, it would not go well and the paper would most likely be destroyed. However, now, whenever someone tried to see his test, they would see absolutely nothing. The answers to the questions would appear blank, as if Sasuke had not touched the pencil and paper at all. All right. Here is the 10th question. Everyone seemed to be waiting in anticipation and nervousness. But before that, I'm going to add some rules for the last question. Kankuro came back in at this time from going to the toilet to gather his very own cheat sheet from his controlled puppet. Well, aren't you lucky? It looks like playing with the dolls wasn't a waste, after all. Anyway, sit down. Stepping forward, Ibuki continued. Let me explain. These are the hopeless rules. First, you guys will have to choose whether or not you will take this 10th question. What, choose? What happens if you choose not to take the 10th question? Tamrai exclaimed, questioning just what Ibuki meant. If you choose not to take the exam, then your score will be 0. In other words, you fail. Ibuki answered. Yes. This guy sure does know how to torture. I am unsure about his physical, but if he can do so well in psyching out this many people, then he should have some particularly gruesome methods. Sasuke thought to himself. Hell. If he couldn't even intimidate a few small fry genin, then I am sure that he would not have the position he currently holds. And of course, the same goes for the two others in the same group. After some people exclaiming that no one would dare back out from this question, Ibuki continued. And, one more rule. If you choose to take it, and are unable to answer it correctly, then you will have to relinquish your right of taking the Chunin exam forever. Coming from a person in a position of power and authority, Ibuki's words still seemed ridiculous enough to a few here within this room. What kind of ridiculous rule is that? Kiba stood up and called out. Besides, there are plenty of people here who have taken the Chunin exam many times. You're just unlucky. I make the rule this year. But I did give you the option to go back. For those of you that aren't confident, you can choose not to take it and take the exam the year after or the year after that. After everyone's quick internal monologue, Ibuki continued. Then, let's begin. The 10th question. Those that will not be taking it, raise your hand. Obviously the safest option is to quit now, which if I had no future knowledge or even no knowledge of character of Ibuki, then I would choose this. No matter what, I will have time to do this again later, and it isn't even too long as well. Then again, one needs to consider the average lifespan for ninja, and they could die whenever, making this one of the only times one can go above their current rank before death. However, the only benefit to becoming a Chunin is access to high-rank missions, which again, only allows one to benefit off of in the future. Weighing all the pros and cons, it is always better to give up there, but that is exactly the point Ibuki is trying to take advantage of. Specifically to do with connection to one's teammates, because even though it is logical to give up here, decisions and choices are not always going to be purely based off of cold logic. Instead, emotions will get involved and likely ruin things. Or make things better. Either way, this test is a really good one. I must give props to the proctor. Sasuke acknowledged Ibuki and his torturous genius. He could be a good troll. Sasuke nodded his head, his overall demeanor totally different from everyone else in the room. The mood being a direct contrast to his own. Once I confirm your number, I'll ask you to leave. Ibuki continued. Soon enough, the effects were present with many starting to leave. Some apologies were exchanged, but most of all, the people had their heads down low at having to experience such a crushing blow to their confidence. Naruto stood up and did his usual talk no jutsu, allowing him to overcome the proctor's threatening tone and psychological pressure. Don't underestimate me. I won't run. I'll take it. But even if I am stuck a genin forever, I will become a Hokage no matter what it takes. I'm not scared. This time Naruto said this with a completely different meaning than the original. Specifically in that his mother wanted to be a Hokage, but was unable to become one. Naruto himself also has this dream separate from his mother, but it has only been reinforced by Kushina's raising of Naruto, thus making this declaration a bit different from the original. Well, Ibuki thought, before continuing. I'll ask again. It's a choice that will alter your life. If you want to quit, now is your chance. I'm not going to take back my words. That is my ninja way. Naruto replied, which gave hope to everyone around. Wow. Even I felt some encouragement from that. How the hell is this talk no jutsu thing an actual thing? Does Naruto have access to some unique bloodline limit like Hashirama's regeneration? I really should see if I could take it for myself. Not that I need it, what with Kotomatsu Kami basically being that. Sasuke couldn't help but admit that Naruto does have potential. I like your determination. Then, for those that are still here, the first exam, you have passed. Ibuki finished. Comment. 9 comments. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 35, V.1C.35 Tune-in Exam V. After Ibuki blabbered for a bit, with Sasuke both agreeing and disagreeing with his words and perspective of the ninja life. Yes, yes. While you may think it is perfectly fine to go in, risking your life, I do not think that is right. Or that may very well be my modern sensibilities from a different world affecting me. Maybe. The first exam for the tune-in exam has been completed. Ibuki called, finally putting an end to the boring act. I wish you well. Ibuki smiled at the end here. All right. Wish us well. I did it. I did it. Yeah. Naruto exclaimed, making quite the ruckus as everyone just watched on, either amused, annoyed, or nonplussed about Naruto's enthusiasm. To be honest, a lot of these people here may have given up if it were not for Naruto's timely interference. Sasuke thought as he was amused by Naruto, but also amused by even those annoyed at Naruto's antics. Sharingan activating on instinct, Sasuke looked towards the window as someone busts through, opening up a large cloth banner and attaching it to the ceiling, allowing for everyone to see it. You guys. This isn't the time to be celebrating. I'm the proctor for the second exam. Anko Mitarashi. Anko is an average-sized, young woman who was of slender frame. She has light brown, pupil-less eyes. Her hair, black with a violet tint, styled in a short, spiky, fanned-out ponytail. She was wearing a custom-made outfit that is crafted of thin metal mesh to fit the lines of her body, that covers her from neck to thigh. Over this, she typically wears a tan overcoat with a purple inseam and a pocket on each side, a dark orange miniskirt, a dark blue belt, and pale grey shin guards. In addition to the typical forehead protector, she also wears a small pendant that looks like a snake fang. Overall, she doesn't look too bad. Sasuke nodded his head, which did seem to be noticed by Ino, whom was sitting in a position at the back to see Sasuke look at Anko and nod his head. Huh? What was that for? Ino grew suspicious for a second, before pulling her attention back where it should be focused on. Let's move on to the next stage. Next. Anko certainly had a very aggressive style about herself. Loud, stubborn, and prone to acting without thinking, Anko would be what Naruto was if Naruto was a girl. What a comparison. Throwing her hand into the air, Anko says. Follow me. This is the location for the second exam, the 44th training ground. Also known as the Forest of Death. Anko said, as surprisingly enough, 78 people had passed just like in the original story, despite there being more people. Training grounds 44. Or the Forest of Death. Sasuke thought as he perceived the place the second test would be taking place in. Its primary function served as a testing ground for the survival and fighting skills of genin trying to become Chunin. It was a very dangerous place, filled with hordes of flora and fauna, often gigantic, poisonous, or even more likely, both, hence its name. A metallic fence surrounds its perimeter with 44 gates equally spaced around it. This perimeter is where the shinobi entered. Inside is a river, the forest, and a tower located in the exact center. The forest's radius is about 10 kilometers. It lies to the north of the 43rd training ground. Within the forest are several large and deadly creatures such as leeches, tigers, and bears. After this, Naruto started to be pestered by Konohamaru and his two little friends, here for a special report and interview of those participating in the current Chunin exam. Anko even gave a go-ahead for a 10-minute break as Konohamaru and his gain, Udon and Mojai started to ask Naruto some questions about himself and his team. Wait a minute. Will I have to do that? Sasuke thought as he watched Naruto make himself the star of the article. How amusing. Sasuke didn't see much benefit to doing this, but it could influence the younger generation. Again. I don't know if Naruto is the best person to be influenced by. Shaking his head, Sasuke went ahead and took his time, talking with Hinata and Sakura about what they are going to do. Hinata, Sakura, let's plan some things out. Sasuke had an idea that Orochimaru would come after him, so he wanted to put in some effort to redirect his teammates' attention to doing other things. I think I will create a shadow clone to go with them in my place. Sasuke thought. Plan. Do you know what we are going to do here? Sakura asked, as the three had gone into an area much more secluded, however people would most likely still be able to spy on them if they wanted to. Yes. Think about what the training grounds here is commonly used for. Sasuke didn't divulge the information directly, instead having Sakura and Hinata put 2 and 2 together. Oh. So that is what it is. Sakura nodded her head. And you, Hinata? She asked. I understand. Hinata replied. Good. We don't know what we have to do yet, but taking everything into account, we would probably have to reach the center. Sasuke said, given they knew of the tower at the center of the training grounds. Nodding their heads, Team 11 would discuss a few more things before the 10-minute time was up and those interviewed had finished. Thankfully, none of Sasuke's team was bothered, and from what Sasuke had sensed, no one had picked up on what they were discussing. This place that is called the Forest of Death, and you'll soon realize why. Anko said, drawing everyone's attention. Naruto, again, proceeded to act up and mock Anko by doing a silly dance and imitated her tone in a stupid way. Of course, declaring that he was not scared of what Anko had just said, which leads to Anko getting a bit petty, proceeding to make a mockery out of Naruto in turn. Facepalming internally, Sasuke can't help but think. I know that this is a different Naruto compared to the original, but how the hell does he still manage to have the same traits? Well then. Before we start the second exam, I have to pass this out to you. Anko brings out some paper. It's a consent form. Before you can take part in the text you have to sign this. From here on out, corpses are going to come out. I have to get your consent to that. Or it'll be my responsibility. Anko started to laugh a bit after saying this, but no one here seemed to get her joke. Well, I'm going to start the explanation for the second exam. In a word, the limits of your survival will be challenged. Anko handed the consent form and everyone around started to pass it around. First, I'll give you step-by-step instruction on the terrain of this training ground. Anko described the training grounds before continuing. In this confined area, you will go through a certain survival program. The contents of which are, anything goes scroll battle. After explaining everything, Anko finished with. Finally, just a word of advice. Don't die. We now start the second test of the Chunin exam. Flying off into the woods, everyone seemed to have their own plans as to what they are going to do. Whether that be to set up traps awaiting for enemies to fall into, be aggressive and progressively hunt down a selected target, or any and all manner of other things that would come under taking the scrolls they need from each other. Even still, individuals would need to have one scroll of each to pass this test, as there is a limited amount of people that may or may not have access to such things. Sasuke had split off from Sakura and Hinata, as his clone, and those two should be able to deal with incoming opponents themselves. Where, oh where, would that snake be? Sasuke thought as his actual body was separated from others, specifically looking and awaiting his chance to come out from the shadows and pounce on Orochimaru. Sasuke also left instructions with said clone to dispel itself, so that he may know when Sakura or Hinata are in danger. Sasuke had left Hiraishin marks on Sakura and Hinata's bodies so he would instantly teleport to them. Maybe that is a new goal. Being able to mark someone and being able to summon them to myself, instead of the other way around. Due to the way the Flying Thunder God Seal works, only Sasuke could move to something, but not move something to himself. If he were to be holding on to something or someone, then he would be able to move them as well, but that is different from the ability to just summon someone when he wants to. Certainly. Maybe I could reverse engineer the way summoning scrolls and techniques work and create or integrate that into my own Hiraishin mark. Wait. Coming to a stop, Sasuke finally noticed something was off. Underground, ha. Orochimaru. Sasuke hopped off of the trees he was hopping on, and landed on the ground. A clearing of land made itself clear for Sasuke's perception. Come out now. I know you are there, underneath. Sasuke stated, leading to a woman coming out of the ground and making herself known. Oh. You have discovered me already. I do wonder why you left a shadow clone with your team, but that doesn't matter right now. A man that had long smooth black hair and black eyes. Wearing a traditional straw hat on his head with his forehead protector underneath and an attire that resembled Orochimaru's but with the jumper legs matching the jumper's top half and doesn't have bandages around his calves and ankles. Why are you disguising yourself? Sasuke asked, already knowing who this was even if he wasn't using host of abilities. You can see through my disguise. Well. It would seem that Itachi's little brother is more than meets the eye now. The man said, his voice strangely girlish in nature. I have this earth scroll right here, and you have the heaven scroll. I thought it only natural that I come and get this prize for myself. Sasuke didn't say anything else, instead gauging Orochimaru's current abilities through his chakra sensing abilities. Do I use Kotomatsu Kami? I have no use for Orochimaru, and can gain wood release along with Hashirama's special regeneration later on. If Sasuke had the Rinnegan as of this moment, he would use it to extract Orochimaru's soul and directly absorb all information hidden within his mind. The man proceeded to swallow the earth scroll. Well. Let's begin. The battle for the scrolls. Orochimaru would not give up his current disguise just yet. The man released his thirst for blood, which affected Sasuke a small bit. Damn. And here I was thinking this whole bloodthirst business was rubbish. All bullshit. But I guess that it is an actual thing, to have something like bloodlust actualized as a feeling someone can feel here. Strange. Sasuke's Sharingan blared to life. Yes. That is it. Your eyes are very beautiful. Summoning technique. The man summoned a snake, a large snake from himself that proceeded to be an annoyance against Sasuke. Well. I am getting tired of this. However, I will use this as an opportunity to enhance my fighting experience, and when things are getting dire, I shall use Kotomatsu Kami. Sasuke thought as he attacked the snake in turn, destroying it, returning it to its own place of residence. You are brilliant, Sasuke. Much, much more than I had thought you would be. Much stronger, and much more capable. Orochimaru seemed to be getting excited. I should confirm just how far his power has progressed. And from my information, Sasuke should be the other Jinchuriki, that is if the first one survived. Orochimaru went in and fought with Sasuke for a bit, and Orochimaru started to see actual improvement in Sasuke within a matter of seconds. At first, Sasuke was on the back foot, even taking some blows as he is not strong enough to actually fight head-on with Orochimaru. It would be round 2 that some change was brought, and while Sasuke was still on the back foot, he was now not taking any damage against his opponent. This improvement is fast. Orochimaru thought. Excellent, Sasuke. Why don't you join me? Join me and get more powerful. Powerful enough to defeat your older brother. Sasuke didn't reply, instead relishing in the fight due to his battle experience finally catching up with his actual level of power. I will be ending this soon. However, I don't think I will be able to use Kotomatsu Kami. His layers are providing him with too much protection, as if there is some sort of barrier stopping me from being able to actually target his mind. Never. Sasuke replied, before proceeding to fight Orochimaru in a battle of physical strength and winning. After all, Orochimaru's body is not the strongest when it comes to the others from his previous team. Even though Kotomatsu Kami didn't require any eye contact to work, Sasuke was having some trouble in using it. Never mind. I will just beat him back, via the usage of some of the Kyuubi's chakra. Cloaking himself, Sasuke put on a show of defeating Orochimaru just by the skin of his teeth due to the Kyuubi's chakra, and of course he had set up a barrier to make sure no one knew of this fact. He had summoned shadow clones to do that job, and after it was over, Sasuke dropped to the ground on one knee. That was close. He was cut a few times around his body, but his wounds were being healed as the Kyuubi's chakra also started to recede. I missed my chance. I should have used Kotomatsu Kami from the start. Whatever, I will have another chance later on.